Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Okay, it's time for kirtan. Hare Rama. Oh my God, there he is. Haribo. Sounds like a hassle, huh? Can't turn it off. Frustrating. Welcome. Jai. You're now in the spiritual world. Whether you like it or not. I think if right now we dropped some of us in the spiritual world, someone wouldn't like it. We go, get me out of here. It's possible. Yes? Possible. I don't feel comfortable here. I need to be in the center. Get me out of here. It's possible, right? Where did this come from?
I'm not too sure.
Okay, we'll chant a little bit. Quiet. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Janababa Girivardhari Gopi Janababa Girivardhari Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Srila Prabhupada ki. I don't think there's a microphone, is there? Is a speaker without a microphone? Is there? Oh. Let's see. Microphone without batteries. No batteries. Dead batteries. I think the batteries are dead. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. So you can, I think the batteries are dead. So tonight I wanted to talk about the quality that Prabhupada has as a unifier. Unifier, bringing people together. And something very interesting happens in Krishna consciousness. Because we have the same philosophy, there's an unstated assumption that we all will think exactly the same. Right? Isn't it? Well, you have the same philosophy, you have the same guru, so you should all think the same way. Right? Now, if you're married, you understand that you and your spouse don't always think the same way. Right? And sometimes we will go to a kirtan, and your wife will come home, or your husband will come home and say, "That was an amazing kirtan." And you say, "Are you kidding? I didn't like that kirtan at all." Or about a class, or about a prasadam or something. "Wasn't that prasadam amazing?" "No, I didn't eat any of it. I didn't like it." So, the sooner we recognize and accept that there are going to be differences, even though we all agree on the same philosophy, the easier it's going to be to unify. Because no matter how much we try to unify, there's going to be differences. And so, devotees were trying to unify, And Prabhupada was saying, you're all different. You're not going to unify the differences. You're going to accept the differences, and the unity is going to be around service, not around all of us being the same. I'm sure every person in this room is different. Everyone in the room is different. A little bit or a lot. Especially if you're Russian, you're really different. No, you're not Russian. Only joking. There he is, the one and only, Nirmal Chandra, live and in color. Along with Tony and June, the dangerous trio have arrived. So, so there's a really, really interesting thing that happened when Prabhupada was trying to get help for members of the Gaudiya Math to come help him in America. This is really amazing. If you look at it in light of the present situation, I think you're going to find this amazing. So, Prabhupada was trying to solicit people to come and help him. And he was having a discussion, I think it was a god-nephew, I don't think it was a god-brother. It may have been a god-brother or god-nephew. He was having a discussion, and they were disagreeing about something that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said or did. I forget the detail. I'll have to find the letter. I don't have access to it right now. But there was a disagreement about something in relation to understanding what Bhaktisiddhanta wanted. This is common amongst disciples. One disciple thinks this is what he wanted, or he did things a certain way for a certain reason. Another disciple says, no, he did it this way for a different reason. And he didn't want this, he wanted that. So this was going on. And so in this letter in which Prabhupada was trying to get him to come to America, they were also discussing this difference. And they were both on other sides, completely other sides of the issue. And to me, when I read what Prabhupada was saying was very simple, logical, common sense, straightforward. And what the other person was saying seemed to be a bit fanatical from my perspective, or maybe narrow-minded is a better word. So, in the letter, Prabhupada said a few things, and then he said, but I don't want to discuss this because we're talking about cooperating together. So what's so interesting about this? They were discussing a difference that, in my memory, was very fundamental. It was almost like discussing Ritvik versus present-day Guru, like something pretty significant. It wasn't like a minor detail. It was something pretty significant. And Prabhupada was willing to overlook that. And he said, I don't want to discuss this further because we're talking about cooperation. So let's talk about cooperation. In other words, he was willing to overlook a difference and work together. Like a big difference and work together. Now, look at ourselves. Could we say the same thing about ourselves? I would say for most of us it would be difficult or impossible to overlook some major philosophical difference or major view on how we see Prabhupada and then work together. From what I've seen in my own life and I've seen in other devotees. And Prabhupada was willing to overlook that. When Prabhupada came to America, the Gaudiya Math had divided into small organizations. There was no unified organization. He was asking people, please come. He was willing to work with them. He invited one of his godbrothers, He said, come here, stay here in Mayapur, I'll facilitate you, you can preach. He was really bending over backwards, as we say in America. I will bend over backwards for you. That means I'll do anything. So I think that is very significant. And we have difficulty doing that, individually and as an organization. As an organization, obviously, we have to be cautious that we don't create disharmony within the organization. But at the same time, we have to be liberal enough to be accommodating of the reality that we're all different and we all don't think alike. Right? Now, I have a friend, devotee, who said, I didn't join ISKCON to become an Indian. I don't like India, I don't like Indian food, I don't like Indian this, I don't like Indian that. I didn't join ISKCON to become an Indian. To which some people will say, something's wrong with him. He's westernized, he's attracted to Western culture. They might even think it to be an anartha. To which he will say, Prabhupada didn't come to make us Indians and Hindus, he came to make us devotees. So you'll have this. It's a normal dynamic. Some people will say, I love India, Prabhupada came to establish Indian culture. Some people will say, he didn't come to establish Indian culture. He came to establish Krishna consciousness, it's transcendental. He came to engage and employ everyone, adapt the Gita to time, place. So you'll have, no, he came to establish Varnashram. If we don't have a culture, we can't preach, people won't see anything. So this is very common, goes back and forth. No, you have to adapt. If you don't adapt, you become irrelevant. As Bhaktisiddhanta said, the Ganges, where the Ganges used to flow is about 700 meters from where the Ganges is now. So you don't say, because it used to flow there, we're going to take our bath there. But it flowed there 500 years ago, so that's where you should take your bath. So you don't say that. You go to where the Ganges is now. You don't say, just because this was happening 500 years ago, you're supposed to do it today. You adapt. Right? So you have this, no, but you can't give in to the whims and wills and desires of the public. You have to stick to your principles. So this just goes back and forth because of the nature of different individuals. This is a reality, and we can't avoid it. So now I would like to describe to you what has been happening to me lately. I'm still alive, don't worry. But something has been happening that's been helping me understand this better. So as I told you before, I'm part of a committee that discusses issues that we feel would be relevant for the GBC to discuss, or discuss issues that the GBC has discussed. And so one of the issues that our group became interested in was the discussion of Vaishnavis being Diksha Gurus. And so we were discussing, and then we invited some people to join the discussion who are not part of our group, but we're advocating that only women in the stage of bhava are able or should be able to give initiation. So we were hearing arguments on both sides, and something very interesting happened. And Prabhupada said in the Bhagavatam that Suniti was the guru of her son Dhruva. She showed him the path of bhakti, but she couldn't initiate him because she's a woman. So the proponents of that female Diksha Gurus only in the stage of bhava said that here's proof that Prabhupada's saying here, women cannot initiate. But Prabhupada said elsewhere, I want all my sons and daughters to initiate. So what does that mean? So they found a verse in Narada Pancharatna that said only Siddha women can initiate. So then someone said, well, the Narada Pancharatna, the context is different. Suniti lived in Satyuga, and women weren't initiated in Satyuga, so if they're not initiated, they can't give initiation. And so it's not applicable to Kali Yuga. And so 15 times this argument was brought, but just kept going back and forth. Like, it was amazing. Like, nobody accepted anybody's argument. No, it's like, no, Prabhupada says Suniti can't initiate, that's proof. It's definite proof Prabhupada didn't want women to initiate. No, that's Satya Yuga. It's women, so it's like, it's going back and forth. And there are many arguments like that. It's just going back and forth. And I'm sitting there looking at it, like, didn't we have this argument before? And it comes up again and again because nobody's accepting anyone else. And the same arguments from a different point of view. And nobody's budging. Have you ever seen an argument like that? And if you look at both arguments on both sides, it actually is quite reasonable. Here's Prabhupada saying this, and this. Well, it seems quite reasonable that he never discriminated between male and female in terms of giving diksha. He doesn't say, when he says, I want my disciples to be gurus, he doesn't say only male and only females who are in the stage of Baba. So it seems reasonable. And then the other side, no, but here Narada Pancharatna says women have to be siddha. They have to be in the stage of Baba because they're weaker than men. And you can interpret that Suniti verse as global. It doesn't matter what age or... So, okay, we're looking at it in Varnashram considerations. What is the position of a woman? What is the position of a woman in society? Should ordinary woman, Madhyamadikari, be sitting on a Vyasasana? That's not Varnashram. So it's going back and forth. Same arguments, like the same 3 arguments on each side. The same 3. That's been going on for 3 weeks. Basically, same arguments. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. You put that in Russian poetry. A man convinced against his will. I'll convince you with a whip. So, the discussion was interesting. And there were so many valuable insights on both sides and so much to think about. And apparently sometimes contradictory things. It seems contradictory what Prabhupada said. So I'm looking at this, going back and forth. And many different people were giving the same arguments. Like, I give it, he gives it, then he gives it, then we ask new people to come in. They're all giving the same argument, and the opposition is all giving the same argument again. And nobody's really budging. So I was thinking, what do we do now? And then I thought, the female diksha issue is not the issue here at all. There's a much deeper issue. That we have a polarization that's very strong because those who are advocating that any Madhyamadikari woman, disciple of Prabhupada in good standing can initiate, will be seen by some as very liberal and breaking from tradition. Because in our tradition, it was only very elevated women that initiated. So you're breaking a tradition. Nobody said, well, you're very liberal. This is dangerous. No one's done this before. It's not allowed. Sri Sampradaya doesn't allow it. Where do you see women initiating Gaudiya Math? This is like you're gonna ruin ISKCON and we'll become a laughingstock. And the other side is saying, look what Prabhupada did. He allowed women to live in ashrams. He had women around him doing service. They were preaching. He had them speaking and doing kirtans and pandal programs. It was much different. Prabhupada was breaking the rules, and in fact, he said in his books, this was my secret. This is why I was successful, because I engaged women. So we doubled our manpower. So both these arguments are going back and forth. And very interesting discussion, isn't it? So one thing I've known for a long time, and I think you know, is that when you enter a discussion within a certain context or a certain point of view, certain things make sense and certain things don't, because they're within that context. And a lot of times we enter a discussion and we've already decided what we believe before we read the arguments. Isn't it? Nature, human psychology. This is what I feel, this is what I believe. So no matter what anyone says, it doesn't really change you because it doesn't make sense to you because you're coming from a certain point of view. That's a reality. And so we're not entering this argument as brand new devotees. We've thought about this for years. So now, when we're shooting our Brahmastra shlokas and purports, got you. That purport finished him off. And he goes, ah! What about this shloka? Ah, got you. So, what I was seeing is that we're seeing things within a certain context which makes sense to us. And why it makes sense to us is because we're individuals. And by nature, if you go through this room, or maybe not this room, but if you went in the temple, you would find some devotees are very liberal, some devotees are very conservative, some devotees are in the middle, a little more conservative, a little more liberal. That's how people are. It's their nature. And depending how you're raised, it will also affect that. You have your personality and how you're raised, so you'll be a little more open or closed, depending how the social context you were raised in and so forth. And one of the things that we find that's so amazing is that when you are predisposed to a certain way of thinking, sometimes when you read Prabhupada's books, you don't notice the things that don't agree with what you think. Like you read them, but it's like there's no place in your brain for them, so they kind of just, you can't make sense of them, so they don't actually register there. Anyone have that experience? Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't know how, that's not what I was taught in the Brahmacharya ashram. So I'm reading this purport. It says, household life's very nice. And it's just like, you have no place in your head for it. So it just kind of evaporates, And it's like, I didn't read that. What did you read in this purport? Oh, Brahmacharya life is really good. That's what I read in the purport. And I go through it and I go, it doesn't say that. But I don't have any place in my head for it. So it's a reality that we tend to gravitate towards the things that resonate with who we are as individuals, right? So someone might think, we need more traditional values in ISKCON, and women need more traditional roles. Someone might think, no, we're suppressing women. This is very unhealthy. We should give them equal opportunity. And so why are we thinking that if we're reading the same books and we're hearing from the same guru? It's such an interesting thing, isn't it? The reason is because both things are said there, to one degree or another. And we are individuals and we are inclined in a certain way, so we tend to remember and focus on the things that make the most sense to us. And it will change when you grow. There's no way to... You can't go on airplane mode because then it takes me offline. So it's a reality that I have observed, but I was, for the last 3 weeks or a month, seeing it in front of me almost every day, like 5 or 6 emails of the arguments, which were basically conservative against liberal, to one degree or another. I wouldn't say overly liberal or overly conservative, but fairly conservative and fairly liberal. So today I was thinking, we have a problem. And the problem is not about should females become Diksha gurus. We're also discussing should disciples of gurus who are living be allowed to give initiation. Let's say you have 500 people want to take initiation from you, but your guru is alive. Should they be allowed to do it? Another discussion, because that's not common. So we're going back and forth. This is not our tradition, but for preaching we need this. Yeah, but it breaks the etiquette, but it's only etiquette. It's not a regulative principle. So we're going like back and forth. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, and many devotees have said this, that because we're different that we understand things slightly differently according to who we are, and it makes sense to who we are, and it makes sense to how we see preaching and how we see people. You're never going to get everyone in ISKCON to always agree. I mean, some things obviously we agree on, but certain things we'll never get everyone to agree on. They'll just, the way I preach, the way you preach, it may be much different. I may criticize you. Your preaching is not good. You may criticize me. My preaching is not good because I'm to this or you're to that. Or you compromise too much or I don't compromise enough or whatever, right? So many devotees have been saying that in seeing this, if we want to reflect Prabhupada's mood, we have to figure out how to create unity where there's diversity. And for us, it's much easier to create unity where there's unity, right? That's pretty easy, right? If you just agree with me, and we can end class now. That was easy, right? You all agree with me? Okay. It's over. Thank you for coming. We all agree. But Prabhupada is acknowledging that there's diversity. And so, one devotee was saying, when seeing this diversity, he was saying, Prabhupada, is that impersonalism? I don't exactly know why he was thinking it was impersonalism. Prabhupada, we're all different. Is that impersonalism? No, he said, no, that's personalism. You're all persons and you're all different. So now you're all persons and you're all different, but where's the unity if we're all different? Well, all the spokes are going to the center. So Prabhupada's view was, if we're all going to the center, then we're unified. We have a difficult time, or many of us have a difficult time with that. Because, no, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. And Prabhupada's point is, you're different, and you're different, and you're different, and you're different, so you see it differently. So, should I read the letter? Would you like to hear the unity and diversity letter? Yes, no, maybe? Or are you still awake? Are you still here? Yes?
Is it possible to turn on the fan, ceiling fan?
It's possible, but you won't hear me. Why don't we just open the windows?
Mosquitoes.
Are there screens? We have screens here. You're not going to hear. We can do it, but you may not hear me. So you can decide. If I have to yell, then I won't have a, So you decide. You have all those windows open there? Yeah, it should cool down. This is cool compared to what it's going to be next month. Just imagine this were April and you'd be thinking, oh my God, it's so cool. So, I want to read this. It's a very interesting letter. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because our movement's going to have pretty big challenges if we don't get this right. If we can't master this, we're going to have trouble. You know, the problem with a lot of these letters is you don't have the letter that Prabhupada's responding to. Yeah. So, some of us know what was going on. As I remember, the devotee was feeling that the fact that we're not always getting along is due to impersonalism. We're not maybe dealing with people personally. And Prabhupada's saying, no. Because you're persons, you don't get along. Because you're unique and different, that's why sometimes you don't get along. So, material nature means dissension and disagreement, especially in this Kali Yuga? Yes or yes? But for this Krishna consciousness movement, its success will depend on agreement, even though there are varieties of engagement. So Prabhupada's saying disagreement is natural, but if we are going to succeed, we have to discover a way for their agreement, for their... Our success will depend on agreement. That's a powerful mantra. Can everyone say that? Yes. Our success will depend on agreement. Turn to the devotee next to you and tell them, our success will depend on agreement. Our success will depend on what? Agreement. All right. So if that's all you remember tonight, you're good.
Also in marriage, isn't it?
Yeah, any relationship. Yeah, any relationship. Because when Prabhupada's saying agreement, a lot of times he's just talking about two people, not like a whole committee. Its success will depend on agreement, even though there are varieties of engagement. Even though we're doing different things, but also we're thinking different ways. In the material world, there are varieties. But there is no agreement. You understand? Radhika, you speak Spanish?
No, I understand the words, but
She can? You speak Spanish? Poquito? Maybe she can explain. Or maybe if she speaks Spanish, you'll get more confused. You could speak a little? Who? No, but you have to speak to her. She doesn't understand all the English.
No, I understand the words.
The meaning.
Yeah.
You have to explain the meaning to her. After class, she'll explain. In the material world, there are varieties, but there is no agreement. In the spiritual world, there are varieties, but there is agreement. I think that's a good mantra. In the material world, there are varieties, but there is no agreement. In the spiritual world, there are varieties, but there is agreement. And again, but for this Krishna consciousness movement, its success will depend on... You all agree? Anyone not agree? The materialist, without being able to adjust the varieties and the disagreements, makes everything zero. In other words, they can't figure out how you can create an agreement out of differences. So then you just need dictatorship. They cannot come into agreement with varieties. But if we keep Krishna in the center, then there will be agreement in varieties. So this is called unity and diversity. So Prabhupada's making the point, okay, you disagree. You want a more traditional approach. She wants a more liberal approach. But why do you want that? Because you believe that's what Prabhupada wants, or you believe that's what Shastra wants, or you believe that's what will be best for preaching, or that will be the best way for people for the long-run success of the movement. You believe that will please Krishna. And I believe the opposite thing, and I believe that will please Krishna. Is Krishna big enough to accommodate both of us? Yes. So we have this statement. You've heard the statement, he will build a house in which the whole world can live, right? But the reality of that statement was made by an astrologer when he saw Prabhupada's face. He saw his face and he made that statement. He will build a house in which the whole world will live. But when you think about that statement, to make that statement a reality depends on us. Prabhupada is gone. If we're going to, it's like we have to make room in the house for everybody. And if we shut people off, then we can't fulfill that prophecy. This is called unity in diversity. I am therefore suggesting that all our men meet in Mayapur every year during the birth anniversary of Lord Chaitanya. With all GBC and senior men present, we should discuss how to make unity in diversity. So you can take this back to your temples and say you can do the same thing. You should discuss how to make unity in diversity. But if we fight on account of diversity, then it is simply the material platform. Wow. I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, material platform. Maybe we're both right, but now we're both wrong. That's what Prabhupada's saying. If I'm right and I fight with you about how right I am, then I'm wrong. Pretty simple. But if we fight on account of diversity, then it is simply the material platform. Please try to maintain the philosophy of unity and diversity. That will make our movement successful. So Prabhupada's saying 2 times. Well, it says 1 was a negative. If we don't agree, it will not be successful. Maintain unity and diversity, and it will be successful. Now, I want to scare you all. Will you allow me to scare you? It is possible, and I know this is a morbid thought, and you're going to say, what's the Shastric proof? It is possible the Hare Krishna movement could disappear in a few generations. It's possible. I can't give Shastra quote, but I can give Prabhupada quote. Maybe around 1970 or 71, Prabhupada formed the BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, for the publication and distribution of his books. And the BBT was separately incorporated from ISKCON. And one of the devotees' mothers was a lawyer, and that devotee asked his mother to help incorporate. So his mother, he told me personally, that his mother asked Prabhupada, why do you want to incorporate separately? And Prabhupada said, just in case ISKCON fails, I want to have a separate company for my books. So that means Prabhupada was seeing it's possible. I mean, looking at us, looking at us 25 years, well, I was 27 when Prabhupada left. I think they say the male brain doesn't actually start functioning till they're, 27? Before that, it's just like all they can think about is sex and playing, basically. Isn't it? And eating and whatever. So Prabhupada's leaving the world with a lot of leaders whose brains still haven't developed yet. So, obviously he had a concern whether it would go on or not. So looking at this letter from that perspective, Prabhupada is giving some pretty serious warnings. That if we don't learn how to get along and agree, we may not have a movement, or we'll have only a semblance of what it was supposed to be. Or we'll have something that's not highly functional, because there's too much energy going into conflict rather than going out to the world to present Krishna consciousness. So what Prabhupada is saying, if we're going to be successful, we're going to have to make room for diversity. And sometimes that diversity comes in the form of very liberal or conservative views. So, Sagar Maharaj and I were briefly discussing this. So it said, we now have Krishna West. Why not Krishna East? Why not Krishna Midwest? Why not Krishna Middle East? Why? Because in politics you have liberals, you have moderate liberals, you have conservatives, you have moderate conservatives. So moderate conservatives and moderate liberals is where most of the devotees lie. They're, you're by nature a little more open-minded, you're by nature a little more reserved and conservative. That's where most people lie. And not only his feeling, but the feeling of many is that if we don't make room for all of this, then what's going to happen? Fighting continues, and schisms and splits. Because if the building isn't flexible when the hurricane comes, it cracks. Or the earthquake comes. You know how your buildings are earthquake-proof. They flex with the earth. Did you know that? And the old buildings are not earthquake-proof, so they crack. So there's a feeling amongst many devotees that if we too rigidly hold to one idea or the other, it'll crack. Conservatives think the liberals will crack it. The liberals think the conservatives will crack it, both because they're too rigid. But the fact is, it doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on. If you're too rigid, there's going to be another side that's going to disagree with you, and so it's got to crack. Whether you're right or wrong, it's got to crack. Obviously, I'm not saying we give into something that's not Siddhantic. But at the same time, our philosophy is broad, and there's a lot of nuances in it. And so Prabhupada is asking us to be broad enough to encompass a bigger view of Krishna consciousness. As I said originally, Prabhupada was willing to engage with people that disagreed with him, which is magnanimous. So the letter goes on. One section of men have already gone out. In other words, devotees have left. And it seems that Prabhupada is indicating they may have left for this reason. That they couldn't find a place. They couldn't be accommodated with their way of thinking. And again, what Prabhupada is saying is not that we're accommodating wrong thinking, but we're accommodating variety which is within the realm of bhakti, the realm of our philosophy, and the realm of our principles. Therefore, we must be very careful to maintain unity in diversity. And remember the story in Aesop's fables of the father of many children with a bundle of sticks. When the father asked his children to break the bundle of sticks wrapped in a bag, none of them could do it. But when they removed the sticks from the bag and tried one by one, the sticks were easily broken. So this is the strength of unity. If we are bunched up, we can never be broken. But when divided, then we can become broken very easily. Now, as I've said before, we want to understand the context in which Prabhupada is speaking. It's a different context than we're in. The context of Prabhupada is his spiritual master had established 64 temples. They call them mats. Gaudiya Mat. Or in Bengali it's probably Mat. Gaudiya Mat. 64. From zero, there were 64 temples. Preaching Krishna consciousness outside of Brahminical culture, preaching it to everybody, giving everyone an opportunity to become a Brahmin and a Vaishnava. If you go here in Mayapur, you'll see many, many temples, right? Why are there many, many temples? They all have a different name on them. You think, why do you need so many temples? Like, where I live, I think there's like 2 temples on one block, or 3 temples on one block. Within 150 meters, there are 3 temples, something like that. Why do you need so many temples? Because after the demise of Bhaktisiddhanta, there was a disagreement over who should be the next acharya. Because generally, when an acharya leaves, he appoints, you will be the next acharya. And then you become the next acharya for the mat. So Bhaktisiddhanta was the acharya of Gaudiya Math. So they're all thinking, who's the next acharya? And he said, none of you. I will not appoint. If there's, you all manage together. And if there is going to be acharya, it'll be so obvious, you won't have to appoint him. You'll see. He'll be the one. He'll show it. You don't have to guess. But he's saying, my understanding is not that acharya is going to run the whole Gaudiya Math. It's going to be run by a GBC. But if there is somebody that is that powerful that others would take shelter of, it would happen naturally. You don't have to appoint him. You can't appoint him. I appoint you to be advanced. You can't do that. So then they thought, no, you have to have an acharya. You can't. There's no institution was ever, there's no acharya that ever left the world and didn't pass it on to another disciple to be the acharya. And he said, no, just have a GBC. You don't need another acharya. And the tradition was all the sannyasis would be guru. That's the tradition. If you're a sannyasi, then you take disciples. Maybe some grihastas also, I don't know, but definitely sannyasis. And so it didn't make sense to them. So someone said, we should appoint so-and-so to be acharya. And then someone said, no, not him, we should appoint so-and-so to be the acharya. So it was very interesting on 2 accounts. One account, they're now appointing acharyas when he said, don't appoint. And it created a schism over who should be the next acharya. And then it got really messy. And different disciples were claiming different properties. And they were going to court to fight over who has the right for the properties, because they split. And then what happened is, you could imagine this happened in ISKCON. It's like, Jayapataka Maharaj should be the guru. No, Radhanath Swami. No, Gopal-Krishna Maharaj. No, Bhakti Vikas Swami. No, it's like, whoa. It's like, Prabhu, whose side are you on? Which one do you want? I don't know. Well, he's good, but he has this fault, and it's like, could you imagine? It would get so materialistic and so bad that most people would just get frustrated. And that's what happened. A lot of people got frustrated. And all those temples were started by frustrated disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta who saw that the whole thing collapsed. So rather than stop preaching, they opened their own temples. They didn't want to be part of this split because they saw it as very materialistic. So now, Prabhupada is ending this letter. If we are bunched up, we can never be broken. But when divided, then we can become broken very easily. He's speaking from experience. He saw this exact thing happen. It broke up into different branches. And when it broke up, it lost its unified power. It was this huge, powerful preaching mission. And then it broke up. And then it lost its power. Prabhupada wanted to go to America. He wanted them to support him. They weren't interested in supporting. So read this from that context of Prabhupada living through a mission that broke up and saying, this is how it happened. So therefore we can understand agreement is very important. When Prabhupada said our success depends on agreement, he's saying if you don't agree, look what happened. You're going to schism out. Then whose side are you on? The female Diksha Guru side or the no female Diksha? The Varnashram side or the modern adaptation to preaching? What else? Brahmachari, Grihastha. Anything there can be a schism over, we'll have one. That's Kali Yuga. If there's something to disagree about, Kali Yuga, it's like, it's good. It's a good place to disagree. So, for all of you, in your work that you do and in the future work that you're going to do, I am suggesting, based on this, that when there's a disagreement, rather than trying to defeat the other, try to think, how can we get along even though we disagree? How can we make space for both of us? So that, like for example, this is a practical example. You'll speak to some devotees and you'll say, what's the problem with preaching? The problem with preaching is obvious. We're not on the street doing Harinam. We don't have any brahmacharis, no book distribution, etc. No Rath Yatra. All good points. Someone will say, no, that doesn't work anymore. We've done that for years. Look what we have. We haven't made a devotee in 10 years. And, we did Harinam every day for the last 5 years and nothing happened. You need to adapt. You need to preach this way, that way. So you have this natural phenomena. But both of them are right. You need Harinam, you need book distribution, you need Rath Yatra, and you also need innovative ways of attracting people that aren't attracted to book distribution, Rath Yatra, or what I say, the clang, clang, bang, bang kirtan of the Sunday feast. We used to have it was so funny. In San Diego, when we were all young and passionate, we'd have these kirtans. And I'm serious, I'm going to demonstrate what the guests would do during these kirtans. They would go to the wall. I don't know if you can see. They'd go to the wall and they'd be like this. Seriously. It's just like, we're like big whompers, 100 miles an hour. And they're just like, it looked like they were like a hurricane in their life. Push. Seriously. And definitely a lot of like 20-year-old men and women are like I'm sure they love that, But like the 40 and 50-year-olds, come from the yoga studio, they came for some shanti, and they got a lot of heavy metal. So they may not come back. So some devotee will say, no, we need to, have our own yoga studio or our center where the kirtans are, very light and peaceful and so forth. And then someone else will say, yeah, but you'll never make any brahmacharis that way, which is probably true or true to some degree. But both are right. So why can't they both exist? Why does one have to cancel out the other? That's our thinking. One cancels the other. Why can't you have both? Right? Does that make sense? So it's a paradigm in thinking. When you're up against something or someone that's very traditional, very liberal, and you're the opposite, why do we have to think one or the other? Why can't we think there's a place for both? I was with Hridayananda Maharaj. I wasn't with him, but I was in New Vrindavan, and he was there, and I met him, and I had a lot of disciples with him. And I was, looking at the disciples, and just looking at what he was doing, and I was, seeing that there are certain devotees that really appreciate his approach, that they don't relate to a conservative ISKCON, and so they appreciate his approach. And obviously, some people are conservative, criticize that approach. But you need a conservative element. If you don't have a conservative element, then you don't have any place for the conservatives. And you might say, well, so-and-so Maharaj, he's so conservative. Actually, one Maharaj is so conservative and so traditional that when he went to Florida, Florida is full of little ponds. And he was staying in a housing development. Instead of using the shower in the house, he went to the pond and took a bath. That's his nature. He probably, lived in a village in his last life, and he loves that. So, Maharaj, there's like, it's not really proper here. No, I have to take it, and this is sattvic, your shower is rajasic. Okay, whatever, So we have nature. So there's true stories. This is a true story. So it just shows that we have different kinds of devotees, and they will gravitate towards different kinds of leaders who represent different values. And we need that. I mean, some people are dying to establish Varnashram and dying to establish all the traditions that Prabhupada talks about in his books. And some people's minds are just so creative that all they can think about is how to adapt to the mentality of the modern man to bring them and to capture them and help them get something from Krishna. So you have different ways of thinking. So it's very important that rather than thinking either or rather trying to defeat somebody, to accommodate them. We'll see if we can accommodate. Is it possible? Maybe it's not always possible. Maybe someone is wrong philosophically and we wouldn't want to accommodate it. But my point is, a lot of times, there is room for both of us. Prabhupada has said many varieties of things on one subject. I've heard classes Prabhupada give where the verse was about grihastha life. And so we know that Bhagavatam doesn't flatter grihastha life that much. At least sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. So Prabhupada was giving a class on one of those verses that doesn't flatter grihastha life, but like 5th canto, just tell like it is, Prabhu. This is what it's really like behind closed doors. And so, the value of brahmachari life, the entanglement of wife, kids, home, conveyances, etc., etc. And so, like you're a grihastha, you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, I made a really big mistake. That was probably the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life as I got married. Look at what Bhagavatam is saying. So Prabhupada is like one side extreme. And then like the last 5 minutes he goes, of course, in Krishna consciousness, grihastha life is wonderful and powerful, and etc., etc. So it's just like you were over here ready to commit suicide, and then it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to commit suicide. So when I was a young devotee, I noticed that all the time Prabhupada was doing that. It just stood out of my mind that he could go on one topic and just get into it or nail it and hammer it. But he'd always kind of say, but, and he'd give you the other side, which definitely shows there's unity in diversity. So that's what I wanted to say tonight, and I would just warn that this is a more fundamental, and the ability to communicate, get along, respect those you disagree with, and work together is much more fundamental and more important than what you're arguing about. Because what you're arguing about could destroy you. I won the argument, yeah, and you destroyed the movement at the same time. You won the argument, but there's no ISKCON left after, So great, congratulations. You understand? You have principles, higher principles, higher principles. So Prabhupada's saying unity is a very high principle. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's time for questions. Yes.
Because Prabhupada used to say that we can show how we love him by cooperation.
Yes.
But I believe that we all have experienced that sometimes we just cannot cooperate.
Mm-hmm.
Not because we don't want, but when we see that it's impossible. So is it not like, because as you said, unity and diversity, and you said that we should still try to make an agreement, but sometimes maybe better to separate, make a groups, people who
respectfully.
are just
Yeah.
thinking the same way
Yeah.
and want to cooperate, because otherwise we will just fight and
Yeah.
we will go to nowhere actually.
No, that is true. And Prabhupada, she's saying that sometimes the best way to cooperate is to not cooperate. In other words, not that you fight, you just
Distance.
you distance. So we have a saying in America, tall fences make good neighbors. As long as if, there's a fence between us, we don't have to deal with one another, then everything's good. So that is a fact that Prabhupada did that. But I would say, and I think you meant this, that is a form of cooperation. Rather than fighting you, I respect you. I wouldn't preach this way, or I don't agree that this is what Prabhupada wants or he's saying, but I respect you, that you understand it this way and you want to apply it this way, and I'm not going to try to stop you and criticize you on the internet. But it's not for me. But this is human nature. I don't like beets, and if you ask me why I don't like beets, I have no idea. I just don't. Do you have to know why? I don't like the way they taste. That's why. But Prabhu, they're good for you, and they clean your blood, and they're so sweet. You don't like them? I love them. Why don't you like them? You sure you don't like them? How could you not like them? Everybody likes them. Right? Sorry, Prabhu, I don't like them. Can I just give you a little? Why don't you just try? Mine are different. You ever have that situation? It's just like, can you just accept there's someone on the planet who doesn't like beets? Oh, no, I can't accept it. I can't understand it. So we do the same thing. Someone is saying something. I don't understand how you could think that way. I don't understand how anybody could think that way. Well, hello, somebody thinks that way. And I'm not the only one who doesn't like beets, believe me. There's bound to be somebody else that doesn't like beets, as difficult as it may be to believe. So if you can accept it and say, okay, he doesn't like beets. All right, I accept that. I like beets. He doesn't get beets, I get beets. No problem. Then it's like I don't sit and look at him while he's not eating his beets. Like, what is wrong with this guy? I can't believe it. He doesn't like beets. Right? It's just like, he doesn't like beets, that's fine. Yes?
On this particular question that you talk about, can you please elaborate a little bit in terms of how do you expect to come up with an agreement, on what ground?
The way I understand it is, with that example of Krishna West, Midwest, Middle East, East. Imagine it this way. Let's say ISKCON actually had Krishna West, Midwest, Middle East, and East, right? So I'm sitting here giving a talk on my understanding of the female Diksha Guru issue. And I say, well, it's not traditional. We want to go back to traditional roles. We need a culture. There's only very few women that did it. Prabhupada said very few, and they were all liberated, and this and that. And then you would say, oh, so you're Krishna East. You could immediately put it into context, rather than having to, and you're Krishna West. So and I say, well, what do you think? And you say, well, I think that that's not really going to work for everyone. And if we're like that, we're going to alienate people. And we have very senior women that are already teaching people how to chant Hare Krishna. So why can't they just initiate it? And I go, oh, so you're Krishna West. And you might go, I'm more Krishna Midwest, because that Krishna West is like a little too West for me. So it's like, oh, okay. So it's already accepted. It's like we can categorize it. We can put it in a box. That's what Krishna West teaches. That's what Krishna Midwest teaches. That's what Krishna Mid. Well, I'm more inclined to traditional roles for women, but I think a few of our ladies could initiate. Oh, so you're kind of Krishna Middle East. Yeah. No, only liberated ladies. Oh, you're Krishna East. So it's, in a sense, if we had that and it was accepted, then we could all accept one another, because it's like, okay, GBC said it's cool, it's okay, all your guru said it's okay, everybody's okay with it, and we can classify it. It fits in a category, and it makes it easy for us. Oh, that's Krishna West. Okay, good. No problem, because Krishna West is part of ISKCON, and that's Krishna East. Yeah, I understand there's a need for tradition. You want to establish Varnashram community. In your community, only men will work, women will stay home. And obviously, the people that like that will go there. We're not going to push the Krishna West people. You have to go in this Varnash community because you're so liberal, we have to brainwash you. No, it's not like that. So that way it would work. That's the discussion. Like, let's make space for it. Because, and we can also say, let's say we did that, and we say, well, let's look at it 10 years down the road. Did Krishna East work? Did Krishna West work? Which one actually worked? Maybe they all worked because people are different. Or maybe we saw this Krishna West was a flop. Or Krishna East is flourishing in New York City. We can't imagine. We thought never in a million years. But, we're surprised. People looking for tradition, they're fed up. Or, Krishna West is flourishing in India. They're embracing, like female gurus. We never thought that. We thought they would. So, that's also, I think, part of it. That naturally, when you make space, then it allows us to see more than saying this is right or wrong. Does it actually work? Show us. We're happy. You can come to America. You can come to LA or New York and, preach very traditional principles and people buy it. Wow. That would surprise everyone. We would like to see it. You're actually making devotees here. We haven't made devotees like you are. And you're just preaching very straight traditional things. And we realize, hey, we never would have thought that. Or we're preaching very liberally in India and we're attracting more people than the temples. They would have, we never would have thought that. But don't you agree? If you can put it in a box and it's authorized, then we don't have to argue. It's just like, oh, that's Krishna East, or that's Krishna Middle East. Oh, okay. That's fine. Yes.
From where the desire of agreement is supposed to come? Because if people don't have desire for agreement, then...
It's supposed to come from this letter. He was saying, where is the desire to agree? Because maybe it's not my nature. I'm more of a, I'm right, you're wrong person. Or I have to be right person. Or I'm not a compromising person. Or I'm not a nuanced person. I'm just, this is how it is. It's black or white. It comes from Prabhupada's request for us to figure out how to do unity and diversity. It's an order. And because he's saying our success depends on it, then even if it's not our nature, we're going to have to adapt. And Krishna Karshani's method is one way to adapt. Just, I'll work with this group, and I'll respect this other group from a distance, because I just disagree with them. But to not create disruption, I won't argue with them. I won't think about them. I'll just do what my group does, which is what I believe is the best thing. And the problem is, when you want what you believe to influence everyone and say everyone else is bad if they don't believe your side, that creates problems. You may believe that. And even though it may even be true, but when you start trying to create revolution within ISKCON, it's not what Prabhupada wanted. You would have to do that through proper channels, through GBC, through legislation and so forth. Not by just giving a class and saying everyone who doesn't believe this is in Maya. You understand? Try to understand.
Yesterday we went to our friends and the husband of my friend, his disciple Vivekananda's family, and he said something not nice. He said that here in Mayapur, often during classes, devotees are criticizing openly Krishna West and the way Vivekananda's family is preaching. So I think this is the main problem, that those who are making classes they make other devotees think this way, and
Yeah. Well, yeah.
they are like following and also criticizing, and that's why they see only the traditional
Yeah,
way
yeah,
is
yeah.
right, but
Yeah.
the Krishna way is not
Yeah.
right. This is black
Well,
and white.
I think the lesson to learn, what I would suggest is, let's say like maybe in his case, maybe what he's saying is, I can't understand how anyone wouldn't like beets, so what do I do? And I say, well, try to understand it's possible someone doesn't like beets. And he's saying, I can't. All right, so what do? Don't give a class and say anyone who doesn't like beets must be crazy. Don't do that. Don't propagate it, because then it's creating disruption. You could say, Mahatma Prabhu doesn't like beets. I just learned something today. There's someone on this planet that doesn't like beets. I never knew that before. That amazes me. People are so interesting and different. And then that's it. What do you think? I'm giving Bhagavatam class. There's 200 devotees there. What do you think about Krishna West? So we can talk about it after class. It's probably a better answer, because this is a leader of our movement that's dedicating himself to a certain way of preaching, and he acknowledges that not even all his disciples will appreciate it, and he's okay with that. But you don't want to create public controversy. That's not healthy. Prabhupada Priya.
Okay, so the point of Prabhupada is saying that our success will depend on agreement. But it seems that what you're suggesting is that sometimes we need to agree to disagree. And then just go ahead with that and let people, people disagree with us, but they should be allowed to
Yeah.
do whatever they think is right and let us do what we think is right.
Within certain parameters, of course.
Obviously it's not going
But I think the key also within that is we have to learn how to be respectful to someone we don't agree with. So I think that's and Prabhupada's saying, it seems what Prabhupada is saying is within that framework, we have to see their devotional service is bona fide and valid, not just mine. That's an important element there. So what was your question?
Yeah, so when it comes to making a decision, I was like about the women guru issue. So, we can agree to disagree, but ultimately we need to make a decision on
Yeah.
the issue.
Yes.
So then,
Well, that's up to the leaders. In other words, you could make a decision that you don't think women should become, you can make a personal decision. And let's say the GBC decides they can, and you might say, well, I disagree with that. So if some girl comes up to you and says, you think I should take a female guru? You might say, I think it's better you take a male guru, because that's your personal opinion. So, but, you don't create controversy publicly. It's just a private thing you hold. You respect that GBC made that decision. You respect that woman who's going to do that service. But you can hold your own opinion. This is not a dictatorship. We're going to chop your head off if your opinion disagrees with the GBC, but you don't want to publicly make a issue over it. And you want to respect, we want to learn. This is one of the hardest things to do, is to respect somebody who doesn't believe, who believes something that you 100% disagree with. Like, what a challenge that is. That's what Prabhupada's asking us to do. So many leaders on the GBC do not always agree with GBC resolutions, but to be a GBC, you have to vow to support those resolutions. So if I was a GBC and the GBC said, okay, we have decided there are not going to be female gurus until those women are in the stage of bhava, then I would come to the temples in my zone and I would say, this is the GBC decision, and this is why they made the decision. And then you say, well, Mahatma Prabhu, what do you think? And I won't say anything. I'll say, if you want to discuss it further, privately we can. But the purpose of my class is just to give you And this is why the decision was made. And so let's say I don't agree with that. I think that was a bad decision, and I think in the future it's going to be overturned. And after we're gone, it'll be overturned, and we won't be able to oversee it. So I think we should have done it so we could oversee it and see if it works. If it doesn't work while we're still alive, we can say, look, it didn't work. But that's my personal opinion, and that's not the GBC's opinion, so I don't go around on a rampage, giving class about it.
It seems you were kind of saying that it's possible to pass a resolution that maybe doesn't apply to everyone, everywhere, but can be enacted in some zones and not in others.
Yeah, because what's already happening in ISKCON, I don't know if you're all aware of this, but some temples will not invite certain people to come to their temples because their agenda is either too right or left, and they had bad experience with it. So, temples are autonomous, and as bad as that sounds, the leadership of the temple has the right. Maybe everyone doesn't agree with it, maybe it's a bad move. But let's say you became a guru and you wanted to go to Vrindavan, and they might say, well, we have a policy, if you're a woman guru, you can't come here. We don't want you. It's like, okay, so, what can you do? So in that way, it has to be adjusted. It wouldn't be ideal, but that might be step one in integrating something new in ISKCON, to give local temples the right to determine who could come or who could give class and so forth. Personally, I don't think it would be as bad as people make it. I think at this point, maybe you'd have one woman who wants to do it at the most. And in our lifetime, you might not see more than one or two. And if her experience in doing it is that she's being criticized a lot, probably no women after her will want to do it. So it almost becomes a non-issue until we adapt to it, or until we see that she did a really good job. She has a lot of disciples who are very satisfied. People are rethinking it, and they realize that, well, maybe she's more advanced than we thought, or... So that's my personal opinion. I think a lot of fears will go away if someone does it. But there's a big concern amongst a certain constituent of devotees about how women are perceived and dealt with in ISKCON, that they feel is a little bit behind the times of the rest of the world. And but probably more importantly, they feel that it's discouraging. It may discourage women who have joined or who would want to join. So I think that's very important. We don't want to do anything that would discourage anyone. Of course, you could say, well, it's their fault they're discouraged. But at the same time, you can say, it's not their fault. It's the culture they're in. They're coming from a culture, and they come to ISKCON, and they see a different culture, which they may really like in the 60s and 70s, it was like ISKCON culture and the outside culture were exactly the same. The women came, they sat next to the men. It was like there was no shift. Now you come and, you go there, you go in the back or the side. So some of them may say, this is nice, you separate, and some may say, you may be in a very liberal part of the world and say, why are you doing this? I don't want to be part of an organization like that. So, sensitive preachers will deal with it sensitively. Maybe in public programs, they'll make more adjustments, and in temple programs, they won't, So people think differently, and some people say, never do that, never make an adjustment like that. Better nobody joins, I won't make an adjustment. All right. Is that good that nobody joined? Of course, you're not going to water things down to get people to join. So these are ongoing discussions, and the reason I'm bringing this up is right now you're sitting here thinking, well, I don't have to make these decisions, the GBC has to make them. Yeah, but in 20 or 30 years, you might be sitting on a temple council somewhere, and you're going to be confronted with very difficult decisions. and very polarized situations. So how are you going to deal with it? So this class was to give some idea that it's not if or. You can make room for everything. Or at least in many areas you can make room. At least we have to try to see that way. And perhaps in 30 years the movement will have made room, so it'll be much easier. And perhaps in 30 or 50 or 100 years, people joining the movement will read the history and say, I can't believe they used to do that. It's possible. I can't say. But it's definitely possible. Okay, Nirmal Chandra had a question.
I'm just trying to understand why certain people have strong opinions and why some have a tendency to agree more. So you say, I heard you say, it's my nature or I have strong opinions, but isn't the ability...
Personality type,
well,
samskara.
you're disagreeing, isn't it samskara or lack of understanding, lack of compassion?
Well,
your ego maybe?
there can be many reasons. It could be all of those. And I asked one devotee who's a psychologist about this because I was having a discussion with a devotee and he had very simple understandings of topics. It was like this or like that. Like you'd ask him a question and you get a one-sentence answer. I was like, this is how it is. It's just very simple. So I was listening to that and I was thinking, well, in his answers, there's no nuance. There's like nothing in the middle. It's just this, you ask me a question, I give you a 5-minute answer. You ask him a question, he gives you 1 or 2 sentences. And so we're having this discussion. No, it's just like this. There's no discussion. So I asked this psychologist, and she said that certain types of people, and I spoke to an astrologer also, certain signs, he said, certain type of people do not have the capability of seeing gray. They only see black and white. It's not that they're bad people. It's just their personality or their mental makeup or astrological influence. They can't see anything in the middle. There's no nuance. It's just, this is how it is. So, for us personally, I would ask you to think, to understand, to try to understand issues as broadly and as nuanced as you can. And that if you have a nature that I'm right, and have to be right and so on, to try to understand that that's not really what Krishna consciousness is about. And it's when Prabhupada's asking us not to be that way. So, if you have that nature, you inherited it due to your past karma and so forth. But no matter what you inherited, if it gets in the way of your devotional service, you have to work on it. So if you have that nature, it's going to be harder for you. If I don't have that nature, then it's easy because I automatically think accommodation, bring people together. You think right, wrong, divide, black, white. So then you'll be challenged. But even if you think that way, it can help you as long as you don't oppose the other side. If you're black, don't oppose the white. Just be happy, be okay with black and pursue that. And other people, like-minded people, you can work with. Then you'll be okay. So that's how I would suggest adapting, if you have that personality type. Now, another thing I was thinking yesterday that's so interesting. I have a daughter and a wife, and I have many female disciples. So occasionally, I dream. How do women see things differently than men? So I kind of understand because I live with 2 women. The other day, Radhika said, we were in the car or something, said, the worst thing for a woman is to go out without a mirror. Did you say that? Or somebody? To go out somewhere but not have a mirror with her. Somebody was saying that. Did you say it? Somebody said it. Is that true? Is that true?
For some of them, yes.
Okay, for some. Some. Well, I don't know what you carry in your purses, but you could probably have a mirror. Or anyway, but let's say I heard that statement. It was kind of like, oh, that's funny. I was trying to think, oh, well, how does a woman think? And so I was doing a video with a woman the other day, and she said, I was thinking of canceling it because I had a pimple on my nose and I didn't want to do it. And she said, that's how women think. You know. And I show up, with an old T-shirt with turmeric stains on it, haven't shaved in a week, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Well, I may be not that bad. I wore a nice kurta. No stains on it. But many men are like that. And you say, oh, Prabhu, you have stains. And they're like, where? And they're like 400 stains. I do? Where are they? And a woman has one spot. It's like, I can't wear this. Sorry, why? Because it has a spot. I can't see the spot. No, it's right there. Everyone's going to notice it. So I know that from having a wife and a daughter. And so I was thinking how, we once, when I was doing my forgiveness workshop, we once did this play. So we had someone wearing blue glasses and we had someone wearing red glasses. And they would stand up and say, everything is so red today. And you go, are you crazy? What are you talking about? It's so blue. Blue? What's wrong with you? It's not blue. Obviously it's red. Red? You're nuts. It's not red. Anyone with a brain can see it's blue. Right? So, yes? So, we are who we are. And we see the world in a very fixed way because of who we are, isn't it? Like how you see this food or this kirtan or this class or this person or that person, it's pretty fixed according to your consciousness level of your personality, your level of understanding. Of course, it can change. But once it changes, then it's fixed. It just goes, now it's here. It's like, isn't it? So we're all seeing things very uniquely. And it's the only way we know how to see it, because it's how we see it. Which makes it so difficult sometimes to understand that there are actually other people who don't see it the way I see it. Right? There are other people who don't like beets. So I think it's an important consideration. Sometimes you hear a class, and after the class, you might think, that was strange. Or, or maybe strange in a good way. I never thought of it like that. That was very enlightening, or maybe for you, very narrow, but very different. And some of the best classes are given by devotees who have very elevated consciousness, because you're kind of seeing it down here, and they're like way up here. Right? So it's a reality that we all have to realize. We have a very fixed way of seeing things. Like, let's say you're a Ritvik. Your lens is, it's on Ritvik. And you see the world through Ritvik. And anyone who's a guru, a Vaishnava aparat offending Prabhupada. That's how you'll see it, right? Isn't it? Or you have a certain way of understanding kirtan, or a certain way of understanding Prabhupada's books. This is how I was trained. It's molded my consciousness. And so everything I see just filters through that. But not everybody sees it that way. And we don't have experience of seeing it in another way, and then it creates a problem. And that's why being able to listen and learn from people who don't see it the way you see it is very important and very healthy. Because it broadens your perspective. Yes. KKGP? KKGP?
No, just G.
Just GD. Gopadini. KKGD. DD. KKGD DD. No, KKGD GDD. KKGDD. Dasi. Devi Dasi when you're married. So you can.
I'm Dasi, although I'm always giving Dasi.
Oh, you can add Devi. Devi's free to add.
There's a certain personality like a goddess, but it's not. That means that you're a servant of the goddess.
You're saying if somebody gets a name, a devotee name of a goddess, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Like if someone's initiated Saraswati Devi?
No, because
Start over again. I was spacing out. I'm still trying to remember your name.
so it means
KKGDDD.
So that means that my name means dear to Krishna. No, the little gopi, it's dear to Krishna. So that means it's Radharani, right? So Radharani is the personality, not me. So it means Devi Dasi, the name is there because of Radharani. That's what I remember. I'm not sure. Anyway.
Sounds very esoteric. Yeah. Radharani ki jai.
Like when someone when there's like a tradition, I was thinking that maybe a tradition can only exist if there's it's denying the other things to exist. Because if you accept the other thing, it's not a tradition.
You say that again?
The tradition only can exist if it's opposing to the other.
If it removes the other tradition.
No, if it's denying the
Existing tradition?
new things to come.
Yeah.
The tradition can only exist if it's denying what is saying, the changes.
Yeah.
So the tradition.
Isolating itself.
Yeah, but that's identity. Yeah, that's what
Let's talk after class. Okay, so what's the good news? We have books in Russian, and we have CDs today. It's your lucky day. What about, do we have the music on the stick? I thought you had, you didn't bring? We don't have any. Well, I have good news for you, ladies and gentlemen. Soon, we will have a stick, 32 gigabytes. It will have all my CDs, all my songs in English, all the songs that are miscellaneous, about 25 live kirtans, and 41 live videos. Plus, as an added bonus, every recording of Prabhupada. All on one beautiful USB drive. What?
On 32 GB, everything will fit on.
Barely.
Yeah, but Prabhupada.
No, that's 16 GB. 32 is my classes. So, I didn't want to give you all my music without giving you Prabhupada's. So you have like Prabhupada chanting shlokas and bhajans and kirtans. 3 gigabytes of Prabhupada. Like 40 different albums or whatever, songs. And we have a new USB that's coming out, 32 gigabytes, that has 34 workshops on it. Over 700 hours. Plus my CDs on it, my music. A shorter version of the music.
We don't have enough life to listen.
Yeah. All on one little key. And then I realized I made a mistake. I should have got 64 gigabytes because everything I've taught is not on there. There's a few things that didn't. Next time we'll go 64. So we'll have those ready in a few days. And we're having a really hard time publishing my new book, but
It looks the Polish one. Again,
no, it's
the
coming.
first one.
No. We're trying to get it for the first day of the retreat. It's called Living Wisdom of Bhakti, and I think you really appreciate it. And on the 21st, which is Friday, the evening before the retreat, we're going to have a ceremony where we're going to rent a boat and we're going to go up the Ganga We'll leave at 4:30, so if you can be at Prabhupada's Ghat at 4:15. Friday. So if you're part of the retreat, that's where the retreat attendees, we're going to do kirtan. And we'll go up the Ganga. The one right here, the closest.
Where everybody is taking bath.
The one right across from the temple. 4:30. Yeah. 4:30 in the afternoon, and then the sun will set, so we'll have kirtan, the sun will set. And we might even have some snacks. It's possible.
Please announce others that they should register.
Oh yeah. Okay. For the retreat, we're going to make prasadam cooked in ghee, dal rice, 2 sabjis, chapatis, salad, and a sweet. We spent a lot to make it good. I hope you don't fall asleep after lunch. Tell them not to make it too good because they'll eat too much. And we are going to give you handouts. It's not going to be 50 pages. We're going to give you different handouts for the exercises that you'll work. So we'll have like a workbook and a folder. And we're even going to give you a chair, but you can't take the chair with you. But it's rented. And in order to do the printouts, to order the prasadam, to order the chairs, we go on the boat. We need to know who's coming. Now, my personal experience is, if you tell me you're coming and you don't pay, there's a 30% chance you're not going to come. So we can't order the prasadam and the handouts if you haven't paid, because although we love you and trust you, experience has told me when people don't pay in advance, it means they're thinking they're not going to come. Something in there is, why do you have to pay the day you're going to come? Just pay now. So we are charging you this very small fee because Bhakta Tony here, he has donated so we can pay for all these other things we need, like the sound system, the flip charts, and the, I don't know, Aditi knows what we're paying for. All these things. So all we're charging you is what it costs us for prasadam and the handouts, basically. More or less. So you know, how much would you pay for lunch? How much do you pay for lunch every day here? How much is that? More than 150 rupees? How much? What's the cheapest?
Sometimes
50 rupees. From 50 to 200, right? Depends. All right. So anyway, we need to get you to register. So tonight or tomorrow night, and Aditi's going to be out one day on somewhere out there. So where are you going to be? You also have to register. Where are you going to be? You're going to have a table out there?
I was sitting there in the morning, only 2 people came.
Yeah. So anyway, if you want to come, we need you to register so we can order prasadam for you and order handouts and a chair. So if you show up and go, where's my chair, where's my prasadam? So, well, you didn't register, so. It just throws us off, you know. I can guarantee you that everyone who registered, if they didn't pay, some will come and some won't. And so we can't accommodate large numbers of 30% of the people not showing up at the last moment. It doesn't work for us. So if you're going to come, please pay.
How many people fit in the boats?
We may have to get 2 boats next to one another. If you want to come on my boat, you have to pay extra. If you want to sit near me, you have to pay a lot. That's how I make a living, doing boat kirtans, selling tickets. Yeah. Right. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanand.